It's Thursday. It's Seamus Says. My colleague Seamus Rohrer has a scathing film room breakdown of the Wisconsin Badgers' performance at Alabama. Yes, it is Talkin Badgers, powered by BadgerNotes.com. I am your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter, Blue Sky, all the various social medias at Kedrick Stumbris. Follow the podcast at Talkin Badgers on YouTube and at Talkin Badgers on the website formerly known as Twitter. I am joined today by my colleague, Seamus Rohrer of BadgerNotes.com, talking about his column on the film he watched from Wisconsin's matchup at the Alabama Crimson Tide. The bad, there's a little bit of good sprinkled in it, but it's a lot of bad. And we're going to preview the matchup with the Maryland Terrapins a little bit this weekend. As a reminder, we'll be back later today, probably with a little bit of thoughts about the Big Ten basketball schedule. We'll have Gardner Fickle on the show tomorrow, and then we'll hit you with an instant reaction show to the game on Saturday. But without further ado, we'll bring in my BadgerNotes.com colleague, Seamus Rohrer. We welcome back into Talkin Badgers. It is Seamus Rohrer, BadgerNotes.com columnist. Seamus, good to see you this morning.
Kedrick, you too, man. It's a pleasure as always. How are we feeling today?
I am doing great. I am anxiously awaiting 3 p.m. Central Time to get my hands on Big Ten basketball schedules. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it. I woke up on the right side of the bed today. We'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah. It's like Christmas morning for a guy like you, man.
Yeah, I am aptly wearing my Wisconsin would have won the 2020 tournament t-shirt this morning. I am fully all in.
Now, is it the whole schedule that's getting released or just the conference schedule?
The non-con schedule is already out.
Got it. So yeah, we're gonna have the whole thing.
Yeah, in past years they have not announced all tip times on this day. They'll start slowly filtering through. So it'll be the one thing we wait for, but we'll have days for everything. Given we already know where teams will all be playing. They don't head out to your territory this year. They're not on the East Coast.
No, I know. I was hoping that they would. I think we already knew like the home and aways. And I was looking for a Maryland. I was looking for a Penn State, a Rutgers, maybe.
Well, you can get to Penn State. But
Penn State, yeah,
getting there is the challenge.
Bullshit. It's just the middle of nowhere, man. I don't know if we want to call that my territory.
I know this is ostensibly a football podcast, but last March I did the basketball first round site in Denver and went to the women's hockey Frozen Four national championship game, which was the same weekend. I just jetted between Denver and Minneapolis.
Right.
Well, this year, the women's Frozen Four is at Penn State. That's impossible to do anything other than be there and getting in and out.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. You're in Happy Valley. You're there. You're not going anywhere else.
Spot on. So that's not in the cards for this upcoming year. So we'll see. The basketball team's got to go somewhere fun, I suppose. Okay, we're here to talk football, not basketball or hockey. Seamus, you wrote a column breaking down the film from Wisconsin playing at Alabama this week, and I found myself cackling as I read it this week.
Is it evil laughter or?
Not cackling at your work, cackling with your work. And some of it a testament to Wisconsin's performance on the field, but I think more of it, your colorful description of it. You lay out a lot of bad. You go out of your way to lay out the good. A lot of where you spend time laying out the bad is up front in the trenches. And I wonder what on either side of the ball did you see that concerned you the most against Alabama?
Well, I'll start. I mean, on defense, I wasn't that concerned up front. It's really the offensive side of the ball, and that's not going to be a surprise to anyone listening to this, but just the offensive line, and particularly the right side of that offensive line. Now, it makes sense. You got Colin Coverly playing guard. You got Emerson Mandel playing tackle, the two redshirt freshmen. And they looked like redshirt freshmen out there, man. Maybe even true freshmen. Listen, it was rough. I mean, just Alabama was getting whatever they wanted on them and getting into the backfield, especially in pass protection, with just so much ease. The run blocking, I thought, actually started to get a little better as the game wore on. But of course, Alabama was already rotating in their backups, and the lead was not one in which you can realistically run the ball and have a chance at winning the game. So, but man, the pass protection was just brutal, especially on that right side of the line. And I thought Alabama did a great job confusing them, honestly. And I mean, that's what you have to do. Like I said, two very inexperienced players, but just things like stunts and blitzes, they were just eaten alive on those. But whether it was things that were schemed up, whether Bama did a good job scheming up pressure, or whether, Emerson Mandel is just getting blown by off the line, barely getting a hand on his edge rusher. So it really, really was not pretty. And man, Alabama's got some talented athletes, and that's something I mentioned too in the column. Is just you watch that tape on defense, you're like, all right, well, this is certainly not the best job by the Badgers' offensive line, but man, these linebackers especially can fly around. So you definitely take it with a grain of salt when you're playing Alabama. But man, it was certainly not pretty, especially on the right side of that line.
There's a clip in the piece, of course, linked in the show description if you would like to go read it, of Emerson Mandel just getting blown by at right tackle, and it's in this piece. And I think Dylan also sent it in a chat, either with you and I, or in something else earlier this week. And it's just like I've seen it so many times.
Yeah,
now.
It's burned into my mind, truly.
And I think there's a lot of positive upside for him. He's not had a great first 3 weeks here.
No.
And it's not just that snap where he gets blown by, but it's also, like you mentioned, he and Coverly having a hard time handing off blocks on stunts. There was the instance in which they gave up a sack against Miami in that he and Renfro pulled into each other.
Right. It's a communication issue in some aspects.
Yeah.
But that's really, really where you hope that, a coach like AJ Blazik, who, to his credit, I think he got Wisconsin's offensive line playing a little better last year than they did maybe in 2023, which is, of course, not that high of a bar. But at the same time, you would hope that that's an area where a guy like Blazik could maybe be somewhat of an X factor in there. And look, I know these kids are young. Like, I know this is a lot to ask, but they've got to get this thing fixed and pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think to borrow a phrase, if we're continuing our basketball theme, to borrow a phrase from St. John's head coach Rick Pitino, I don't know if Emerson is laterally fast enough to play at tackle.
Love that guy.
But I do think there's upside for him on the interior. It's just they need to rep together and they need to get better there overall. You also write in the column that under offensive coordinator Phil Longo, Badgers were hung out to dry when they didn't have competent quarterback play, which, largely due to injury, was most of the time. I think they have something closer to competent quarterback play in Danny O'Neil, but he did not have a flawless game. What did you see from him when you went back and watched the tape?
Well, it was really interesting to evaluate Danny O'Neil, I think, in this game because, I thought that outside of a couple really glaring mistakes, he was largely okay. It's just hard to play quarterback, man, when your O-line is just 5 turnstiles. And I think that really started to bleed into his play. There's a clip that I highlighted where he actually, for once all afternoon, he has really good protection. And Alabama doesn't really send a blitz, and he's got some time. And had he stayed in the pocket for maybe a half second longer, man, he had a great chance to hit tight end Lance Mason on a ball up the seam. It's hard to blame him for not seeing that and bailing out of the pocket when he's got pressure breathing down his neck. all the time. So it is hard to evaluate a quarterback behind such a disastrous offensive line. But I do think you just saw things that, quite frankly, I mean, you expect from a true sophomore starting in Bryant-Denny Stadium. He's never played in a stadium even as close to that size, at least on the road. And so that's kind of what you expect. His first interception, you know, he didn't see a safety playing a hard flat. And like you watch it, and it's almost hard to get mad at him for that if you're a Badgers fan, because what can you expect, man? This guy is a true sophomore starting in Bryant-Denny Stadium. He came over from the Mountain West, man. He was he was a San Diego State starting quarterback last year. Now he's playing in Alabama. Like it's par for the course that he's going to have some bad plays like this. And quite honestly, man, like watching Billy Edwards tape from last year, he had some really bad interceptions too, where you just watch it and you're going, what are you doing? So it's not something that you can sit here and say any one quarterback is immune to. And that's another reason too why I think that, again, you cannot really use injuries as an excuse for what happened on Saturday.
Yeah. If we're talking continued knock-on effects of the offensive line, and it's interesting that you are kind of bringing everything back to it, because Luke Fickell basically did the same in his weekly presser this week about any question about the offense, run, pass. It was like the run game, some of it's going to be opened up when we can throw the ball downfield. But part of the issue of being able to throw the ball downfield is we need to have protection up front. It's everything kind of comes back to the offensive line, and in this very rudimentary, like even non-ball knowers can understand this.
It does.
It really does all start there. Continued knock-on effects. I find the idea that Darian Dupree might find his way back into something of a featured tailback role very enticing if they're not going to be able to run the ball between the tackles all that effectively. And I wonder what your thoughts are on Darian Dupree, Dylan Jones, the running backs as they have shown themselves so far through 3 weeks.
Man, I don't think they're using Dupree enough, and I don't think it's necessarily anyone's fault. I mean, you got a guy you really like in Dylan Jones, who you think can be a workhorse back, sort of that physical in between the tackles back, like you said, especially on first and second down. But I really want to see Dupree in there on third down, man, because he's just such a talented pass catcher out of the backfield. And I'd like to see them get creative with him. I mean, I'd like to see them align him in all kinds of wacky, exotic ways. I mean, Jeff Grimes he's got tricks up his sleeve in terms of getting his players that he wants touches the ball in interesting ways. I mean, I'd even give it to him on one of those like jet sweeps, on one of those reverses. I'd give it to him, line him up like as an H-back or something, line him up as a tight end and see who he draws in man coverage. Because as we saw very briefly against Alabama, linebackers can't cover him out of the backfield. And are you going to use a corner to cover a running back? No, you're not. Are you going to use a safety? Well, he better be pretty good at man coverage, man, because Dupree is shifty and he's got good hands. And I think he's a good runner too. I think he is a good pure runner as well. Jones is a little more up Grimes' alley, but I do think that he needs to get a little more involved. And I just like to see a concerted effort to get a mismatch with him in the passing game, especially because I think that's where he could really stress defenses.
I completely agree. And it doesn't surprise me. And I didn't see the snap count or I guess I did see them, but I forget it. The snap counts between he and Dylan Jones. What I do remember is Dupree ended the day with a greater volume of rushing yards than anybody else on the team. And I just wonder if that continues to have an effect where they do end up going to him over time, particularly if you are just forcing yourself into these more creative play calls. If you're going to get the run game going more through these jet motions and things of that ilk. Of that ilk was, and I'm glad that you highlighted this because I don't know if anybody else throughout the week wrote about it. This reverse flea flicker thing.
Oh, don't get me started, man.
it felt like I think you give Jeff Grimes more credit for this. And you're like, I know they were trying to move the ball. To me, it felt like we just saw Alabama do this. I want to pull out my fancy flea flicker play too. That's what it felt like to me in the moment. Was like no, I got one of these in the bag too. And am I wrong to be so judgmental of his intentions? And I know I'm projecting his intentions, and perhaps I should not be. But I will get you started. What did you think?
Thank you. No, and another thing about this play, I just to refresh people's memory if they can't remember off the top of their head. Badgers are down big, and they try what looks to be just one of those classic like jet motion handoffs, which then turns into a reverse, which then turns into a flea flicker, which then turns into Danny O'Neal just getting hammered by two linebackers as he somehow completes a pass. They're trying to take a shot downfield. And I'll start with this. Like, I never claim to be an offensive football coach or defensive football coach for that matter. But it also didn't make a lot of sense to me that Grimes decided to run that play from the short side of the field, like from the near hash. They didn't have that much space to get that reverse going and to set it up. But aside from that, my bigger problem with that play was that requires significantly better pass blocking than they had been getting the entire game. It's a long developing play. 3 people need to touch the ball before it can even get thrown. Yep. And in the meantime, your pass protection is just getting destroyed. I do understand that you're trying to move the ball in creative ways, and I guess I do see where he's coming from on that. But man, I just that was not, especially to leave Danny out to dry like that too. I mean, it was just not. I didn't like that play call. It's not to say necessarily I thought the play calling was even one of the remotely close to the top of the like most important issues, but that one was weird. That one was weird. I wasn't a fan of that. There was a play call I did like though. I don't know if you were going to get to this, but I might just segue to it.
Go ahead.
I think it was my favorite play Grimes called all day, and it was that sort of that like throwback screen to tight end Lance Mason. It was a big sort of misdirection. The entire offense starts moving one way, and then Lance, kind of sneaks out. Him and Riley sneak out, and he's wide open. It doesn't actually gain that many yards because, again, like I was mentioning, man, those Alabama linebackers on the other side of the field, they see that. They're like, all right, I can get over there in a couple of seconds and make the tackle. But that was a creative play. I don't want to put this on Jeff Grimes. I really don't, because this is truly a personnel issue, especially up front. But yeah, that the play call, man, especially just watching that from every angle on the all 22, I'm scratching my head,
Yeah, I loved that Lance Mason little like I'm trying to think like counter screen, you almost want to call it.
Yeah, I thought it would you could say like a misdirection screen, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, not an offensive football coach, but
that was, and like you mentioned, I don't want to put a ton of this on Jeff Grimes because so far what I've seen from Jeff Grimes, I think has been really great. I think the little flea flicker reverse jet thing, I think that's a play you want to have in the playbook because as much as it is, it's Jeff Grimes going to the play off the play. Do I think he needs to go to that flea flicker play off the play in this game? No. Would I rather he continue to run the jet? And I think you probably wait to whip that one out later on in the year. I think that's probably a better opportunity when you have seen in the game that your offensive line can hold up against that level of competition. It's probably when you want to whip that out. But that Lance Mason misdirection screen, I think is so fun because it builds on the play off of like the entire like mantra of the offense, the entire like fundamental building block of the offense, which is you get the offensive line on any given running play moving from right to left or left to right.
Exactly.
And then by just leaving one offensive lineman moving the other direction, you completely flip the script basically on you have to make the defense honest on any given running play, which I think is fascinating.
100%. I mean, listen, his scheme has been fun to watch, man. Like I don't want to put too much blame on him. I think that I think it is very, like, what he's trying to do is very intentional, and coming from the last play caller in Madison, that's pretty refreshing, right? Because like you said, like that's the basis of his scheme. You get these zone runs where it's just a line moving this way, moving that way. Now, you didn't have a whole lot of that against Bama. The line wasn't really moving much of anywhere, but nonetheless, you see the point. You see there's intentionality. You see him trying to set these plays up. And just another thing about that flea flicker too is I think you also call that with, I'm sorry, I can't get over it.
I don't blame you.
Man, I think you call that with Billy Edwards too, right? Because you want a stronger arm on that play. On that reverse, Danny's getting the ball 10, 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And again, it's a deep shot. And, in that game, I'm not positive that this had happened after, but he had already underthrown Vinny Anthony on a deep ball in which he was wide open. So again, I just, you want someone with a little bit of a stronger arm for that play. But, needless to say, Jeff Grimes, you are far from the main problem at the moment.
Completely agree. Those deep shots, Vinny got himself open on one. Jaden Ballard, of course, gets the go ball, the happy note that you end the piece on, which I love. And I want to ask, this is putting you on the spot a little bit, but this is something I've been toying with over the last 5 days. Are the wide receivers the best position group on this football team?
Man, you just like the hair on the back of my neck just stood up a little bit. Because I've been thinking, I feel like those thoughts have been creeping into my brain too, man. And I think it's really interesting that you asked me that, because I think I point out in the piece, I'm like, well, look at this touchdown to Jaden Ballard. I mean, it's one-on-one coverage. Zabian Brown, that's their top cover corner, or top one or two, him and Damani Jackson. He just gets a step on him on the go route. It's a good ball, and he makes the catch. And you're like, okay, well, that you see, like, where was that all game? But also maybe just the talent level in certain spots is not quite as the divide is maybe not as great as we think. I think, and like I mentioned, on Vinny Anthony was wide open on a double move that Danny just underthrew. Excuse me. So these receivers, I mean, watching the offensive tape, like, receivers getting open was not necessarily the problem at all. And I do think with Ballard and Anthony, you got two guys that just really stress a defense with their ability to, just take the top off a defense. And I don't know if I want to call them the best position group on the team yet, but I mean, they're certainly up there, man. I mean, it's got to be them or the inside linebackers, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the only. The outside linebackers have been quite good so far this year too. I think linebacker play overall probably inserts itself into the conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move from the Crimson Tide to the Terrapins. Seamus, one. Do you know the difference between a tortoise, turtle, and a terrapin?
Man, you're gonna have to educate me.
I don't know why I'm obsessed with this. A turtle lives its life mostly at sea. So turtles live in the ocean.
Right, sure.
A tortoise mainly spends its time on land. It is mainly a terrestrial animal.
Okay.
And then a terrapin is something basically in the middle, where it lives in brackish water, right? So a slightly salty body of water.
Okay. Well, that makes sense for, like, DMV. You got Chesapeake Bay and all that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so now we've done our I wanted to say, what is this? We've done our zoology lesson for the day.
Yes.
Yes. What do you think of the Terps? What do you think they got? They got a quarterback who can hook the ball downfield in Malik Washington. That part is for sure.
And if you're Wisconsin, that's pretty terrifying because your secondary has not looked good the past 2 weeks. Have yet to truly deep dive into that defensive tape, but I'm honestly sort of dreading it because that secondary didn't look good. And I know Ty Simpson, like, he was outstanding, right? You got to give credit where credit's due. He was phenomenal. But it just, that secondary worries you, man, even against a true freshman quarterback. Now, they don't really like to run the ball all that much. I think you mentioned earlier off camera, it was like they're 58% passing plays on offense, which, you know, especially for a true freshman quarterback, he's thrown for almost 800 yards through 3 games, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. You're like, that's a real worry. And it's really unfortunate because this secondary, you came into the season thinking, oh, this is the strength of the defense, maybe even the strength of the team. And now I'm not so certain that they're going to be able to hold up even against the true freshman quarterback. So I think that is 100% the biggest storyline and the biggest key, not only to win this game for Wisconsin, but also just to sort of instill some more confidence in this defense, that it sort of can be the elite defense that we thought that we saw at times through the first 2 weeks.
Let me put you on to a maybe misleading positive about the defense. The defense has held 2 different offenses to no third down conversions, at least in the fourth quarter.
Ooh, yeah, I was going to say there's got to be a catch somewhere to that because Bama certainly did whatever they wanted on any down. But, yeah, I mean, no, like I said, man, they did start to play a little like the trench play got a little better, maybe on both sides of the ball later in the game. But I do think they can stop the run. I thought actually it was pretty impressive what they were able to do against Alabama. I know that it didn't matter, which it's like a moot point. They got destroyed no matter what, even if they did a pretty good job stopping the run.
No, but it is important because, like you mentioned, Ty Simpson put together like a surgical performance, right? And they might not see another quarterback performance of that caliber the rest of the year. If this team has an actual run defense, you know, that's for all that you and I have talked about, the Heartland Trophy, that's going to be big.
And Iowa doesn't have Caleb Johnson to save them anymore, man. Speaking of the Hawkeyes, that tailback room is a little banged up right now. And I guess Mark Gronowski isn't the savior of the Iowa passing game that some thought he would be. Anyway, not to dwell on that. I know we're talking about Maryland this week, but
we can't help ourselves.
I do think that they're going to need that pass defense to show them something this week, though. I mean, they cannot get carved up like they did against a true freshman. I don't think that – I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I just – you have to show some improvement in pass defense for me to feel a little bit better because, you know, the trenches are obviously the most important thing in the Big Ten. I'm not disputing that. But you still have Oregon on the schedule. You still have Ohio State on the schedule. You still have a bunch of teams that can throw the ball pretty well. So that's 100% what I'll be looking for. But, man, in the same vein that I was excited to watch DeQuan Finn in week 1, man, I'm excited to watch this Malik Washington kid, man.
So am I. I think he will be I think he'll be fun to watch. I think Wisconsin fans are probably hoping he is not fun to watch.
Right.
But I suppose we'll find out. Seamus, what do you think is going to happen in this game? Or is the Wisconsin Badgers football team going to walk away with the win? Seamus says?
Tentatively, yes.
Need to put a more unsure ding there.
Yeah, maybe like something like that. But no, I like I said, man, I haven't fully dived in to Maryland quite yet. But from what I know, I do think Wisconsin should be able to win this game at home. I think that they can get Maryland into a lot of third and longs. And I think that the pass rush after a down week against Alabama, which, hey, a down week, they still got a sack. Look at that. Maybe the pass rush is back. But, you know, I do think that after a down week against Bama, those outside backers are going to have a little bit better of a shot against those Maryland offensive tackles. I still like Allegro coming up the middle. And so I think that's going to be the key. I do think they're going to be able to get him into third and longs. I think the question is whether or not the pass rush is going to be able to get home. On the offensive side of the ball, man, I'm not sure if Billy plays, but you have to imagine that he's just chomping at the bit against his old team. Ultimately, my opinion hasn't changed from a couple weeks ago to where I don't think it matters too much. Just like last week, I don't think it would have mattered too much had Billy been back there, to be quite honest with you, with the way that offensive line played. And I think that's also something that goes into the coaching staff's, decision-making process. Do you really want to put Billy back there if he's still not 100% and you're really, really worried about that offensive line being able to keep his jersey clean? So those are my just rambling, unorganized thoughts about this game as we sit here on a Thursday morning. But no, I do think they win. I do think that spread is a little big, though. We were talking about that 9.5 points. I'm not sure what Vegas knows that we don't, but I do think they win this game, and I think it comes down to those third and longs. Can that pass rush get home?
I will leave you with a maybe less than positive thought to chew on as we leave here. Maryland, their defense has amassed 10 sacks so far this season.
That's a lot through 3 games.
They've gotten home without the blitz on 6 of them.
Yeah, that's not what you want to hear, is it? That's not very enticing to hear. Although I know that they have played FAU, NIU, and Towson, I believe. So
that is correct.
Yeah, that definitely is not music to anyone's ears, or on the Wisconsin side of things. You know what? I'm curious what you think about this, Kedrick. Do you think they're going to give Davis Heinzen another shot at any point in a meaningful game situation?
It doesn't feel like it. I mean, we've seen the entire offensive line be shuffled in a manner pretty exclusively to leave him off of the field.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Like the entire offensive line is now structured in a manner so that they do not have to play Davis Heinzen.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have seen,
but that didn't really work, though, did it? So
no, but nonetheless, there have been 3 different players who have seen the field, like just if we're calling the offensive line one unit and not discriminating between interior and outside and center and guard and whatever, if we're just simply not discriminating, call it all offensive line. We've seen 3 players that started the year as reserves all hit the field against Alabama, and none of them were named Davis Heinzen.
Yeah.
Which tells me I don't think they have any interest in making it happen.
I mean, I tend to agree with you just based on how they've played it since that pretty disastrous week 1. But it's interesting. Your fickle talk. Oh, we're gonna need him. I don't know. All right. I mean, are you? You better hope not, man. You better hope you don't need him. But no, I don't know. I think it's a tough situation, man. I think you gotta feel for the kid, right? I mean, he transfers in. It's like his dream opportunity. He's playing a huge, important role for the Badgers, and he loses his job in week 1. I mean, you got to feel for the kid. I don't know if they're going to give him a second shot, like you said. And the way that they are making it so that the way that they're doing everything in their power not to really makes you think that they won't. But yeah, I just thought I would bring that up because I've been curious about how they can continue to address this issue and if they have thought about bringing him back, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know, and I know we're running a little bit long, but whatever. Who's gonna tell us to shut up? They when he was talking to folks at player availability this past week, I believe is where this comes from. He's apparently their swing tackle. So like apparently he could be expected to contribute to back up either Emerson or Malman at this point. I guess. I don't think he was exclusively played on the left side at Central Michigan. So I don't know where that's coming from.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know who else they've got. Like, I think that just tells you everything you need to know about the depth of the offensive line right now, which is really a shame. Because it wasn't utilized properly in the past couple of years when Longo was here. Obviously, just with the whole air raid debacle, and but I do think that they actually were probably in a better place depth wise both of the past 2 years, and that's actually I'd say probably I think definitely, and that's not a very hot take. So it is kind of a shame how this has played out. They finally have their identity, and they finally have this ex-offensive lineman play caller who runs this pro style system and just wants to out physical you, and all of a sudden you're just at a loss for bodies on the offensive line. So there is some weird, man. You get some weird, like there's some weird karma going on with this team or something. I mean, you even heard Vinny Anthony talk about it after that week one, where he's like, I don't know what's going on with the quarterbacks in this program, man, but we cannot keep them upright. So not to get superstitious or anything, but it's just unfortunate, man. It's just really, it's quite unfortunate what's happened here.
Agreed. But alas, a football game will be played inside Camp Randall Stadium at 11 a.m. Central on Saturday, and we'll be back here next week to talk about it. You and I, Seamus, appreciate you joining us on Talkin Badgers.
Of course, Kedrick. My pleasure. Always great to be here, man. Excited for Big Ten play to start. Excited for you to get your hands on that basketball schedule too, man.
Oh, I can't wait. Thanks, Seamus. Thanks again to Seamus Rohrer, colleague at BadgerNotes.com, for stopping by the program. You can read his full film breakdown linked in the podcast description. Really appreciate Seamus coming on the show weekly. Always a pleasure talking ball with him. We'll be back soon enough to talk Badgers basketball schedule. We got Gardner Fickle coming on the show this week. So stay tuned to the feed, youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers and BadgerNotes.com for all the latest until we talk to you again very soon. On Wisconsin.